The meeting to order. In attendance is Chris Shipper, Chair, Linda Andros, Marty McLaughlin, Susan Schweitzer, guests Pam Flynn, Tiger Mann, Sven Englund, and Robin Bates Mason. Thank you very much for attending. First order of business to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on April 8th. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve those meetings.
Second?
I second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? I will simply add that Susan, you're as secretary, I want to thank you again for the incredible quality of your minutes, and it must be advantageous to have the whole video background and hard to listen to, but the minutes have been fabulous. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome, but I have to abstain on this vote because I wasn't there.
That's correct, but I
Never
did
mind that
want
I
to
wrote the
recognize
minutes.
you. I want to recognize you. So a motion to approve.
Marty
Make the motion
approved.
to approve.
Marty already did, and I second.
Seconded, in favor?
Yeah,
All right,
Aye.
approved. Thank you. On the starting point here, we'll start with the mission Sustainable New Canaan. Robin, any updates for us on the Sustainable Fund and progress?
We're going to have our next meeting of the sustainability team on Thursday, May 27th. I'll send out the agendas tomorrow, actually. Just plugging along. That's about it. We have until August 25th, I believe, to send in our application, and a few programs that were done the past month will apply. Also, Tiger's done some trainings that will earn us points as well. So I think we're in good shape.
That's great.
Yeah, I did a complete streets one yesterday and today.
Oh, wow. That's
great.
great.
It's a three-parter. So that was part 2 today, and I have one more part to go.
Oh,
And
great
Tiger
news.
just send those to me, and I'll compile them.
Sure.
Okay. I did want to mention to you, Robin, that we're going to be supporting a New Canaan High School science team water study. I don't know whether that will add to our sustainable CT, but the collection of information on a couple of on the Norotan River tributary, and then a report on it may be of use. But when we get to that topic, we can discuss it further. All right. If there's anything else on sustainable CT, Robin? Okay, great. Then I'd like to turn over and invite our guest, Leo Carl, to present on his townwide EV charging planning. And Leo, you may need to share your screen, or
if I could, that would be great, Chris.
okay, you'll have to get authorized by Pam, I think, and would be wonderful. So I look forward to hearing it.
Thanks for the invite to get us on the agenda. I really appreciate it on relatively short notice. Greetings. I know most of you. Marty, good to see you.
good, same here.
Seeing you at the Y. One of these days we'll get back there and spend. Some of you, Tiger is going to have to endure this again. I'll go through it quick, but I thought this would be a very appropriate group to just run through some background, and then some thoughts about how New Canaan can better prepare for electric vehicles that are hitting the road in greater numbers, increasingly bigger numbers. And I think this gives New Canaan an opportunity to leverage some of the great work that's happened behind the scenes in terms of sustainability, in terms of embracing some newer green technologies. We've done a lot of investments in solar. We've done a lot of great work through your conservation commission, through the land trust, through Green Links trails. There's a lot of really good things going on around New Canaan, and some of it's sort of behind the scenes that people don't visibly see. Electric vehicles, I checked with the tax assessor recently, and we're up to 175 EVs, plug-in EVs registered to New Canaan residents in town, which might surprise some people. Doesn't surprise me, but that's the number right now. And And yet, as a town, we have one public charging station at Morris Court that was put in about 10 years ago as part of a Northeast Utilities program. And then we have three charging stations here at Carl Chevrolet that are open to the public at night and weekends. And frequently I have people plugging in while they dine at restaurants in town and other places. So Kevin, and this came up in conversation over the last couple of months with Kevin Moynihan, and he kind of said, we'll put together a few people and study this, or I guess whatever. So a few of us, including Tiger, Chris Herring, myself, Keith Ritchie from the Parking Commission, and Laura Butt from the Chamber of Commerce have met several times, and we've put together this PowerPoint that we've now given to a few groups in town, and I'm happy to give it to anyone that wants to listen to it because I think it's good information. So just a quick assessment. In 2018, less than 1% of new vehicles registered were a plug-in electrics. In 2021, this year, it'll be about 3%. And within 4 years, by 2025, it's projected to be over 15% of new vehicles will be plug-in electric. The growth will be geometric through the rest of this decade. And that's just a factor of some of it's global initiatives, and some of it is an initiative to move towards zero emissions that began probably a good 10 years ago. Admittedly, kind of went on a 4-year hiatus recently with some policy changes in Washington, but it's back on track. And well, there was a lot of new models in development by auto manufacturers. In the US, we didn't see much happen over the last 4 years, but we're on the verge of seeing sort of an explosion in the next 12 to 24 months of electric models coming to market from virtually all manufacturers. Tesla's clearly been out front. GM is next in line with EV registrations to date, but what's driving it is declining battery costs. So much like other technologies, when you think about personal computing, what started out as big, bulky boxes that cost thousands of dollars and allowed you to do multiplication and division have developed into tiny chips that process thousands of data bits a second. The same thing's going to happen with battery costs. And there was a pretty big drop about 5 years ago, and it's now down to about $176 per kilowatt of battery costs, which is significantly less than it was a decade ago, and it's going to be driving down further. So that's kind of the math behind the trends. Here in Connecticut, as of early 2021, January, there's just under 14,000 electric vehicles registered. Interestingly, out of all the 167 or 69 municipalities in the state, New Canaan ranks 4th in per capita EV registrations. That's a good factoid. Just for, in a little bit, I'll share. They come in all shapes and sizes. You know, everyone's kind of familiar with Tesla's. Chevy had the Volt and now the Bolt EV, but there'll be many more models coming to market. There's a Bolt EUV, which is a small SUV that will come to market this summer. You see charging stations around different places.
You'd be interested in
And
this.
they come in different shapes and sizes. But as we transition as an economy to or personal transportation from gasoline engines to EVs, there's a few facts. Most EV charging will happen in people's homes overnight. That's the vast majority. But the availability and the visibility of public EV charging it's a mental stimulant to let people know it's safe to drive an EV because they see charging stations available in places that they travel on a regular basis. I don't believe that it's entirely a municipality's responsibility to put out EV charging stations, but I believe as a municipality that we can do a lot of things to incentivize investment in the space and potentially as a municipality give some of our public parking spaces up for EV charging. And that's a sort of a a yin and yang. What happens first? Does the charging station happen, or does the demand for the charging station happen? And I think they go hand in hand. I think we have a base need right now. The one thing that every EV driver will tell you is that in the back of their mind is something called range anxiety. Every vehicle has a certain amount of energy stored in its battery, and it can take you a certain number of miles. Most EVs are in the 250 to 350 mile range these days. If you're driving further than that, you need to think about how and when am I going to charge. When you see charging stations out in the places that you drive normally, it gives you comfort to know that they're going to exist in other places. And so EV range anxiety is something that affects everyone, whether you have an EV or not, you're thinking about it. This presentation I initially did for the TDAC committee, and I alluded to this before, but we have some great local assets, but EV charging, we have one station, while Darien has, I think we're now up to close to, I think there's almost 20 in Darien and almost over 30 in Westport in the public domain. So we have a ways to go to catch up. And I never like to just catch up. I like to lead. So I don't know. That's a good goal to have. Here's a couple maps from the state of Connecticut with the fast charger superchargers that you find on highways, which I'll hit on in a minute, the 3 levels of charging, but the state has done a mapping out of a grid, and these green dots on the right map signify new fast charging stations that are in development to go in to build out the highway infrastructure around the state. We'll have a good infrastructure within the next 12 to 24 months. There's money coming from several sources. Volkswagen of America had a big settlement with the EPA over some emissions issues a couple of years ago, and that's billions of dollars, I believe, hundreds of millions of dollars coming in to EV infrastructure build out. A lot of it's going to charging stations. Some of it's going to electric bus grants. The Board of Ed is investing in one electric bus that's going to hit their fleet this year or later this year, I believe. All EVs come with some sort of app that gives you visibility to public charging stations. So when you're traveling and driving, you can see where charging stations might be. So one might ask, how does that affect a town like New Canaan? Well, if someone's out driving on a weekend and say they're from New York and they want to do some weekend shopping, maybe go to a restaurant, check out the local shops, or go to some tourist destinations. If they're driving an EV, they're going to check and see where charging is available. Right now, New Canaan shows one charging station on the map. There's many more in other locales. Granted, like Wilton's not very far ahead of us, similar stuff to New Canaan. But these charging stations on the grid that are visible through apps will show the user a green circle when it's available and a red circle when it's busy. The ones that are the smart chargers that are going into service now. Some of the early ones don't have that ability to show a driver whether it's in use or not. But so this was taken a snapshot in time. Just as an example. So I mentioned 3 levels of charging. What most people, anybody has grounded wall outlets at home that are 110, 120 volt outlets. So an EV could charge on any grounded 110 outlet, but it's a very slow trickle charge. Think of it just as almost like a maintenance charge. That's going to give an EV an added 3 to 5 miles of range per hour it's plugged in. So not very much range is going to be gained by plugging into a standard outlet. It's going to take you a long weekend to get enough juice to get back to where you came from. Level 2 is a 240 volt plug, much like your dryer at home runs on. And the second level is where most people that own an EV have had a level 2 charger installed in their home garage or or accessible at workplaces. And then the third level is a DCF fast charge, which is direct current, or the like Tesla superchargers. They dump a lot of current, a lot of energy into the vehicle in a short period of time. So you'll typically gain at least 100 miles of range in about 30 minutes of charging or better. The goal will be GM's new Ultium batteries that are going to come out early 2022 are going to give you 100 miles of range in 10 minutes on that third level of charge. You're going to see those chargers installed along highways and main interstates where there's longer distance travel happening. They're very costly and they need to be high use, high turnover, a lot of use. For us here in New Canaan, our public charging opportunity is at level 2. When you look at the cost of these chargers, the mid-level level 2 chargers, the charger itself, a good public one, a home one can cost like $400, $500. A public charger is closer to $1,000, and they can range even up to $2,000 if you get a 2-headed one. You can get like for $2,000 you can have a 2-headed level 2 charger that reaches 2 cars at once. Depending on where it's located, the installation cost can be $1,200 to $2,000 or more if there's trenching and reworking of pavement or concrete sidewalks. So where you locate these matters, and planning ahead and doing it around new construction or renovations is a big plus, because you can piggyback other work that's already happening. When you look at the level 3 fast chargers or superchargers, you see the numbers are just prohibitive for any kind of local investment. These are big ticket items that require big investment. So again, for New Canaan, level 2, level 3 is more for highway infrastructure. If the federal government passes any kind of infrastructure bill, I'm fairly confident that some portion of funds will be allocated to this build out of infrastructure around the transition to EVs. How that will be deployed, it is potential that there could be some money allocated from the federal government to the states, and then the states down to municipalities, and there could be like a waterfall effect, but that's yet to be seen. I personally think that EVs can be a magnet for potential EV drivers. I mentioned before that if you have an EV and you're out driving on the weekend, especially if you're from a little bit away, you look for places that are friendly to EVs, and you're going to be more likely to drive to a destination that has multiple chargers available. It's a potential way to attract new residents to town that are EV inclined. It's a great way to attract diners to shops and restaurants in town, and also any of the destinations we have in town. So we have gone through a thought process just thinking about New Canaan. From over the past 10 years, I've developed my thoughts, and it's, again, this is my personal opinion on where chargers are best suited. And I think they're best suited in parking lots that have turnover every 1 to 2 hours, as opposed to installing them in, say, commuter parking lots where a car parks for the full day. In that case, you're benefiting one driver. The purpose of public charging is to be available to as many people as possible. And so you want shorter stays. Someone gets some benefit from it while they're there, but then let someone else come in and use it. And in the course of a day, maybe 3, 4, 5 drivers have used that one charging station. So potentially the one alternative to that is on our school property, school grounds. Chargers there could be an attraction to attract teachers from out of the area. A lot of teachers commute over an hour each way. And we've met with the Board of Ed. I'm actually going to do a walk around of the Board of Ed facilities tomorrow morning with their facilities director, and we're going to scope out potential sites for chargers. It could be an attraction for them to hire teachers or retain teachers, and then they're available for after-school activities and all the weekend activities, from sports to theater, especially at the high school and SACs. Those facilities get used a lot, sort of around the clock. So on the right side of this slide, we have the picture of the Morris Court charger on the bottom right, and then one of ours at Carl Chevrolet. And then we identified a few spots around town in the downtown area that could make for easier installation of charging stations. One behind Town Hall, the back of the old Outback building. Tiger has already said inside the wall here is electrical service. So sort of on the low-hanging fruit theory of where do we go first, this is a spot that could have a couple of chargers installed on this wall for a fairly low cost of entry. Then you get to the old post office lot. There's an electric service panel right there in the parking lot next to a parking meter. This tells us that there's power here, so it wouldn't be that hard to put a bollard up and put a couple chargers there. And then similar in the center school parking lot, there's a power box there. So there's a potential in that lot. We know that that lot's going to potentially undergo some significant changes in the next 24 months between the library, potential construction and use of that ultimately. And then the town merchants are, some permits have been issued for employees of the downtown to try to free up downtown parking. So, so how do we get this done? Or how do we move the bar forward? And I'm sort of bent on this right now. Tiger's got $10,000 in his budget allocated to EV charging. I'm floating some ideas around town, and this will be the first group I'm saying this publicly to, but I've had a couple private conversations. I'm going to try to put together a mailing list, or first a little focus group of some current EV drivers from town. And I have a theory that if we got together the 175 EV drivers that currently have an EV, if even 25% of them were willing to make a contribution toward a fund to fund EV chargers in town, I bet you we could pool together some money from like-minded citizens who would like to see some more charging in town. And my thought is there's really three major hurdles to EV charging. Number one is the physical space. We need a parking space identified for EV charging. Number two is the cost of the charger itself. And number three is the cost of installation. So I think, okay, if we could get the cost of the chargers covered by private philanthropy or by grants from organizations, then maybe the town could use its $10,000 budget, and the Board of Eds has already said that they would be willing to use their built-in labor, electrician labor, to install chargers. So I'm thinking we could more rapidly expand the number of chargers available by combining resources. So sort of a public-private partnership. As a sort of caveat, I've talked to Arnold Karp, who's built the view out, and their initial plans called for putting in, I think it was 4 or 6 EV chargers in their parking garage. And I believe they've ended up with over 15 or 16, maybe even 18 because of demand. So they clearly have seen in the newer wave of people coming to town, a much bigger demand than even they anticipated. I've talked to the Chamber of Commerce. Not that many years ago, they did a campaign, public funding for the lampposts in town. Businesses and individuals sponsored a lamppost, and the chamber arranged installation, but the cost of the lampposts themselves was covered. And I'm thinking something similar might be able to be happening with EV charging. And another thought, which haven't gotten to the Board of Finance yet, or the tax assessor's office, but a thought of potentially for commercial landowners, if there could be some small tax credit against their local property tax for installing an EV charger, maybe $500 in the year that they install it. They prove that they installed a charger, they get some kind of tax credit. I'm not trying to spend the town's money, but trying to find ways to encourage private investment. So the state of Connecticut has been contemplating, I don't know that this is passed yet, but it's been under consideration, to build into the state building code a guideline for the number of EV chargers per parking space. And there's been some studies done where as many as 10% of total parking places will be needed for EV charging in the next decade. So this is really sort of an informative session to bounce off you guys. I know that there's a Sustainable Connecticut fund, I believe, that's given grants out, and another thought was to try to tee up a project potentially to involve some high school students in a crowdsourced fundraising around EV chargers for the fall to get into the next wave of matching funds, and potentially see if we couldn't set up a campaign to raise funds to cover a certain number of charging stations. Potentially those are the ones that go into the school, the Board of Ed properties. Like if we did 2 per school, I think we figured out it would require about a $15,000 raise. And it just might be a good project to involve some youth in and get some energy around. So really open to any thoughts or feedback. Since Chris is here, the Land Trust has some attractive properties, especially the Bristow Bird Sanctuary. I know that there's not a lot of space there, and there's not really a parking lot. There's the pull off along 106, but that potentially could be a spot where a charging station could see a lot of use, and it could be a fun. One thing I didn't mention was there are these charging stations can be hooked up to networks. There's ChargePoint, EVgo, different public charging networks, and you can set it up with a membership swipe where EV drivers will have a little fob on their keychain for the ChargePoint network, for instance, and they get to a ChargePoint charger and they swipe it, and it charges them for the use of the electricity. So it pays for itself, but you can get revenue back from that also. For the use of the charger for whoever installs it. So it's not going to be a big moneymaker in the beginning, but as usage increases, fee generation can multiply. That's why there's some publicly traded companies. One of them is EVgo, that's in the space of going out and making some big investments. They're spending $250,000 to $400,000 installing like 4 superchargers in slots around locations, with the anticipation that they're going to be collecting the fee revenue from use down the road. So enough said. I'll let that settle in. I know you've got a whole meeting to go tonight, so I appreciate your time.
Leo, it's really helpful to get this primer on what we're trying to accomplish. And before I jump in, I'd like to open it up to Sven and Robin and Marty and Linda and Susan and all and Tiger to share your thinking on this. It does seem to be very consistent with what we're trying to do in Sustainable Connecticut, what the First Selectman is trying to accomplish in electrification, in carbon, mitigation. And I think it is a fascinating problem, because what you've got is everybody with an EV has a base station, but they don't have an away station. And so solving that problem certainly will drive visitation, because I had the recent experience of having my a visitor from New Jersey come up and then just have to take off to try to, range anxiety is real when you're about 80% of your utilization. So I think it's a great question. I mean, it's sort of like getting us into siting council kind of discussions. And there's also the opportunity for just some, I don't want to call them showcase, but the opportunity to put up some examples to see how, and to learn, frankly, how it works and go forward. But I'll open up the floor to all the attendees for Q&A. Is a great opportunity because you've really thought through this nicely. And I realize there's still a lot of uncertainty and questions, but that's a great primer.
You can make, as of tomorrow, you can add one more EV owner, and that's us. We're picking up a Tesla tomorrow. So it'll be 176.
So there, so
Uh,
it's
what-
real.
It seems like the dealerships would be really wanting to make investments in this somehow. Because the more EV charging stations are, and as you could market that, and especially in communities like New Canaan, where the potential for sales is very high. But you're the one, Leo, that knows that. Mark knows that more than anyone.
Well, I mean, to be truthful, in the last 10 years, I've sponsored and paid for probably 10 charging stations around Fairfield County.
Already, yeah,
But
and that's enough, huh?
I only have so many resources.
Right.
And that's,
But
I'm
you know
taking
what?
I'm
But-
taking on this job of sort of
Right.
apostolizing the
Yeah.
effort. And I've been at a lot of meetings in other municipalities, and some like Westport really embraced this early on in Fairfield, and there's a tremendous number of charging stations over in Westport and Fairfield.
Mhm.
Tesla early on, all the auto manufacturers got together and in the US created an North American EV charging standard.
Mhm.
And
Right.
everyone signed on to it except for Elon Musk, who said, no, I'm going to do my own thing. And so
Yeah.
the Tesla superchargers are only available to Tesla owners, but he's built out an infrastructure that's on the highway. But his theory is everyone that owns a Tesla will charge at home with their level 2 charger. And then when they're on the highway, they have access to the Tesla superchargers. Now it's a subscription-based service, a couple $1,000s a year to join the supercharger network. So not every Tesla driver
Right.
will have that accessibility, but all the other manufacturers are on a standard EV plug, and Tesla made an adapter. So a Tesla owner can use any EV charger. Unfortunately, other EV owners can't use a Tesla supercharger because they won't allow a reverse engineer plug. But that's, I think as I said, it's more of the public visibility of these is just a reminder to more people that it's okay to own an EV. It's not something out of the ordinary anymore. And as you see more and more, I've seen there's a few Porsche Taycons around town that Porsche has a model. There's Audis, BMWs. I mean, every manufacturer has
Yes.
plugins. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's great. I hope there are more. I hope that we can figure out a way to add more charging stations. So that if I'm stuck downtown and I have no more electricity, I can plug it in somewhere.
Marty, any questions, or Susan? You have to unmute, Marty.
I'm good.
Not yet, Marty. Unmute.
Can you get me now?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say that we'd like to thank Leo for the leadership that they're showing, and that the Call family have been leaders in town and giving back more than any other family I know of. So I do believe, though, that yes, the car companies will benefit, but certainly the town will benefit a lot more. No question about that. And I believe that the information that is being supplied to us tonight is helpful, and something has to be done, I believe, for the future. I think that there's going to be more and more electric cars on the road, and I think it's not just going to ramp up gradually. It's going to be a fantastic move. When all of these new models come on the market, they're going to be replaced. So it's something to put our minds to and maybe see how we could help out.
Thanks. Thank you, Marty. Leo, a couple of questions. Do Do the studies show what people actually do while their cars are being charged, away from the home base when they're on the road? Is it crossword puzzles? Do they want to go shopping? What happens?
No, I think right now, because most of the chargers are on main highways, I do know people that will drive their car to a highway rest area just to charge to come back home. Now, I will tell you that Tesla and other manufacturers will tell you that you should only use the level 3 superchargers as on a limited basis as you can. Some people have to use them for a long travel, but those charges do have a little more degradation to the battery than a slower level 2 charge. So a level 2 charge is healthier on a regular basis for your EV. So for the most part, people just love being able to plug in while they do something they normally are doing. So if it's shopping or going to the library or going to have lunch or dinner or watch a movie, the theory that you could be doing an everyday activity and having your car charge up at the same time is a win-win. And it brings business to downtown areas. So I think, Chris, to your point, if you're traveling someplace and your charge is happening because you need to go further, and you have to stop to purposefully recharge, yeah, reading a book or listening to a book on tape or getting out of your car and do stretches, you're probably there at a rest area. But the charging that you're doing in a downtown area like a New Canaan is going to be much more liberating. You're going to be able to go, out and do other things. You're not going to be stuck by your car. So,
And Leo, if your car is charging and it reaches a certain charged point,
yep.
does the charging system shut off at that point once it gets feedback? Does it also would it also be able to send a signal to your phone to say your car's charged, you can get back and pick it up, finish your appetizer or finish your dessert?
It does. And the ones that are the smart chargers, which are the ones that you're paying for, ironically, they have those, most of them are set up to have almost like a penalty kick in 5 or 10 minutes after your charge is complete, maybe 15 minutes. They want you to come back and unplug your car and move it because they want the next person to plug in. So most of them in their contract have a per minute fee that starts kicking in after your car is fully charged. And I would suggest that's another reason why I think putting them in even metered spots that are like a 2-hour metered spot where it normally turns over in 2 hours anyways, it's a smart thing to do. We have the Morse Court lot, we have the Park Street lot. So those lots where you have turnover could be naturally helpful. Good question though.
And we are at a point where it seems like we have peaked in our parking lot demand, at least for long-term parking structures. So there is an opportunity. I guess I could imagine down the road, you'd have like a speedway station for charging, and it would just be a series of bays, restaurant or whatever it is that they'd say, come on in. I do think there is a tourism aspect to this that's pretty strong, but I also like the environmental aspect. I'd sort of ask Sven, Robin, and Tiger their thoughts on public space and using that for charging or demonstration charging points. And then the second one, I have a question for Tiger is, what is the direction of fleet management in New Canaan in terms of going electric over time? I'd like to throw it open to Sven and Robin and get their perspectives.
Well, I'll just talk to the, unfortunately, the Sustainable Connecticut, I spoke with them this week, and adding more chargers doesn't get us more points, but they're looking into doing that for next year because they've been getting that question a lot. As for spaces, to digress just a moment, when Leah was talking about the Sustainable Connecticut, they have verbally approved a program for EV chargers for the fall. It would need to be something that we get in right away since the community match fund is very popular. The other thing is talking with VW, the state with the VW grant. They said they were pushed back, but they're going to start taking applications this May, but it's already mid-May. So I don't know about that, but I think for the EV chargers, it's personally, I think it's important, not so much for New Canaan residents, but to bringing people into New Canaan. My friends with EVs, they're charging at home, but if we want to attract people to downtown, you know, we definitely should have the chargers. We're kind of behind with other towns, and I think it's something the town needs to do.
I'd
Sven?
say, Leo, you know the score. You got to proselytize the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance early, because they're the only people who can add to our budget, and town council can only subtract. So probably less need to work with town council. Go for the money.
Yeah, Chris, so I'll give you where we stand. The parking commission approved the thought of having an additional one at Morse Court after Leo presented to them, and then one at the town hall annex. Those are two locations that we had already been looking at. The $10,000 has been in my budget for 3 years now, waiting for some impetus to come forward, and I have additional monies in, granted, we're not, I have to wait for it, but if it's approved, not this year, not in 22, but in 23 and then 25, so spaced out accordingly. So I have already asked my engineer to go take a look at Morse Court and the town hall annex. Town hall annex probably do people visit to town hall, and then some employees that travel that already have EVs. We have several that have them already. And then Morse Court's an easy fix, as Leo said. And then separately, I had reached out to Dr. Lutzy after I had read Leo's diatribe, this 200-page EV 2020 document. And I had read the same thing, about 10% of our parking spaces should be EV ready. It's almost like you'll have a criteria like you have disabled spaces, right? 1 every 25 up to a certain amount. Well, same thing for EV. So I reached out to Dr. Lutzy separately and said, have you gotten any, requests from your teachers for it? And would it help you, especially considering that I'm going to pave the other half of the high school lot this year, the West School lot, and part of the East School lot. But given all that, given I'm going to be tearing up pavements, probably the best time to go and do it. So I was thankful that Leo's going to meet with Dan Clark tomorrow, and then we can kind of circle back and figure all that out. And then on the town side, we put in for a congestion mitigation and air quality grant through the state for 4 EV vehicles themselves for our land use departments as they go off for their inspections on a daily basis, building, planning and zoning and on the wetlands, what have you. And that we added 3 chargers to that. The majority of them in the locust lot, since that's where we're parking, or we're slated to park. We have looked at the possibility of EVs for our police department. They're looking at it, especially since some other police departments are going that way. And then I guess as the technology rises, we can start, they're starting to look at pickups and things like that. But for my other vehicles in the other departments, they've got to get to a point where they can, manage the load. It's a little bit different, but our lower end vehicles, I'm looking to see if we can change them over, parking, land use, things of that nature. Hopefully we'll see if we receive this grant, and then we'll go forward from there.
All right, Tiger, just a question. Would it be okay if some students got together and did a community match fund this fall for an installation of some at the schools?
That would be great. Yeah, I have no problem with that. We can, I can work with Dan. I had the same thought as Leo did, where they have an electrician on staff, right? I have to hire, but they have an electrician on staff where they can work there. And if they show me the locations they want, I can put the conduit in and, get the infrastructure in while I'm paving, and then work on the rest of it later, right? You can feed the conduit, you can then, mount the pole, things of that nature at that point. But yeah, that would be fantastic. We can certainly work through that.
Okay, thank you.
Take it easy, Sven. Yeah, so that's right now, that's where we're looking. I'm hoping to try to push the ones along, especially since the parking commission said yes for Morse Court. and town hall, and this first selectman is behind the initiative. I'm going to push those two locations rather quickly, and then we'll go from there.
Tiger, that's good news, and it is the right segue. I mean, we've just invested very heavily in solar, and I think we have to start investing in, applying that solar benefit around town and the overall conservation benefit of it. So, Leo, I appreciate you giving us this presentation. It'll be up on our website and for people to look at, and it's great building up awareness. We'll give it some thought about if Tiger's building 4 pull-off spots by Bristow, whether that is a sensible site for a charging station. It certainly is visible on Old Stamford Road, but I think there'll be issues of can we get power to it and what have you. But I believe that this is one of these things that it also will rise geometrically as we start to install. We'll install more and more. It just builds. So
Great, appreciate the time. And
anything we can do to support it, we're happy to give the shout out.
thanks. If I'll say this to you, like I've said to everyone else, if there's any other groups that any of you are involved in that you think would benefit from hearing this, I'm happy to put stuff on my calendar. So I think the more that we go out and talk about it, the more ideas will surface, and the more positive momentum we'll get. So
I would say, and again, I don't know whether the Waveney Park Conservancy would be a good group to present to, but it strikes me that Waveney is a visitation point, not far from the Merritt, and could have a couple of charging stations if it was, and not many people stay more than an hour anyway, or 2 hours. It's an interesting location, and there is power there. So that's certainly a useful opportunity.
And I've mentioned to Kevin, all the investments made in solar to me lend themselves to, if you put EV chargers near the buildings that have solar, you can advertise that charger as solar powered. It magnifies the investment that's been made. We haven't been able to get that done to date, but it wouldn't be that hard to go around and do. So we're looking at that as well. So
yeah, I totally agree. My brother-in-law says the sun fills my gas tank. Yeah. So it's a great story.
All right, great.
Well, thanks, Leo. Thank you so much for taking the time. Chris, thank you for helping set it up, and happy to hear the story and see what we can do to push it along.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Leo.
Thanks, Leo. We are going to move forward on discussions. The next one I want to move to is agenda item 3B, which is the river testing, where we are supporting Harbor Watch for $3,500, and we've just created a new program that Linda has helped establish, which I think I'm very excited about. So, Linda, would you like to discuss that or talk about that?
Sure. Do we have the document that we're going to move to accept, that I just sent to Tiger and Pam? We're going to share that document. Maybe not. Oh, here we go. So here we are. So we've had presentations on our water quality, starting in February, and we decided to sort of narrow our testing to nutrients, which are the phosphorus and the nitrates in some of our standing water, particularly the Bristow pond, but to really analyze this intelligently, we need to sample at least six different sites, starting with the upstream, which you can see here, the sampling locations, to the last one, which is Weed Street. And Chris, did we get approval to do that one from the Indian Waters residents?
Yes, very nicely. The Van Fleets immediately responded with a yes. They'd be happy to allow the kids to test the water that runs into their, I think it's called Potts Pond, down at the bottom of Weed Street.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, great. So the timeline starts this month. and ends in October. And there are two different situations, whether it's wet weather or dry weather, to determine the differences in those conditions. And Dr. Cosby has worked out with the sampling logistics to take them to the York Analytical Lab. And she'll coordinate with the high school students. There's going to be 6 or 7 high school science team high school students that will be undertaking this. The team, the president is Clara Bloom, who's very excited about this. We met with her, we Zoomed with her earlier this week. And she's been interested in this project for some time now. So I think it's a great project for the science team. And they will be preparing the report. They'll be doing a data review and interpretation that they will present to us in the fall after they've done all the analysis. Dr. Cosby's will have some of her staff with the students in order to ensure that there's the safety precautions and that everything is done appropriately. So I think it's a great program, and I'm sure you all think that as well. It's really, we budgeted $5,000 for our water testing. The river testing is $3,500, and this is going to cost, will be granted at about $2,450. So it falls pretty much within our budget. So I would like any comments or questions before we move to approve this project. Everybody excited about it?
Well, Linda, I'm excited about this because I think that as we collect information, and this is the waters leading into and through Bristow and out of Bristow and down to Weed, the tributary of the Norotan River. This will give us some more local testing, and with the results, we'll find out if there's a heavy phosphate or nitrogen load coming in, probably from neighborhoods and what have you, that we might be able to share the information to say, look, with this heavy nitrogen is not only flowing into our ponds and our streams, but it's flowing all the way down to Long Island Sound. And, thoughts on mitigating the use of that, if that is good water management, is very helpful. And I love using students to tell stories because they generally bring it down to a very, kind of a simple and a straightforward and understandable manner. So I'm a fan of this idea, and I love to, me personally, I mean, it's a learning experience for us as commissioners, and it's sort of like a citizen science project. And it's consistent.
So we have had some experience and data in the past to show that there is runoff of over fertilization that then runs into our still waters and our ponds and our rivers, et cetera, and that produces eutrophication, and it's something that we need to watch because overgrowth of algae kills, it destroys your ecosystem.
Right.
There
Depletes oxygen and what have you.
Right.
Right. So I'm in favor of this because it continues our learning of what's coming through Bristow, and it is the wetlands and waterways that make Bristow so special as a bird sanctuary and as a native plant sanctuary. So
right.
Very helpful.
Right.
Marty, any thoughts, comments? You comfortable with this?
Well, I'm so happy to see all of the work that's being done for the environment. It's encouraging, and I think that New Canaan can take a leadership position in all the things that is happening. I do believe that the Exchange Club can help along these lines. Keep them in mind. I'm going to call Leo and tell him that he ought to talk to the Exchange Club also for his project. But yeah, this has been a good event. Thank you.
Good. Susan, any comments? I think not.
Okay.
if that's the case, then I move to approve a grant of $2,450 to support the New Canaan High School Science Team Harbor Watch project on the Norotan River testing and the Bristow Waterways testing.
And I second it.
I'll take a vote. All in favor?
Yes, all in favor.
Thank you. That's the quorum.
Did
that we need.
Susan vote?
I can't tell. She's, what do they call it? She's flying under the radar. She's flying, flying under river. Tiger,
I
are you
voted.
comfortable? I
Okay,
want to check. Tiger, are
Thank
you
you.
comfortable with this project as well?
Yeah, I was just hoping you were gonna do both inlets to Richmond, to Mead Pond. You have the one, you're saying upstream, the inlet on Richmond Hill Road, but there's two.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's two streams. There's two bridges, two streams.
oh,
So
So you have-
the other one
yeah.
is down by the other entrance, down by the entrance?
On Richmond Hill Road, where the two bridges are,
Mhm.
those are two separate streams. So you've got the one that leads the larger stream, which is say, if you're looking at Mead Park, when you come down Grove Street onto Richmond Hill, it's to the eastern side. But then there's a western culvert, and that western culvert actually leads straight up to the Racket Club, and then that leads to Kimberly Place and all the areas coming down from Weed Street at Irwin Park. Part of Irwin Park actually drains into that rivershed, that watershed. So there's two. So I was, if you don't have the money, and I can have Sarah bill us for her work on it, I'd be happy.
I'd be happy to make that modification, Tiger. If
sure, let's do
Sorry,
that.
I raised my hand, but you started. I didn't want to stop you, so I apologize. But yeah.
then I recommend we accept that and add a seventh point to the testing schedule.
Okay. Yeah. If you have a problem budgetarily, just let me know.
I think we can manage it, Tiger.
Okay.
Yeah. Great,
'Cause I-
all right, thank you. That's very valuable
No,
information.
thank you. Yeah, because on a secondary note, we're actually working with Sarah. Well, we just had conversations today about it, and
Right,
we had 10 areas of concern for us through our testing. And while they don't trip our DEP requirements for ammonia and nitrates and surfactants and things like that, they did have a higher E. coli level. So we actually gave them to her and said, hey, would you, and she's going to come out and take a look and sample those for us.
Mhm.
Take a look at it on her end, since it's a little bit of a different look, right? So then she's going to go through that and look at our GIS system and see whether or not we've got a problem with a septic system or our sewer system. And that's why we're having an E. coli, a raised E. coli level. So we're working with her as well. So, I think this is a good thing to do.
Right.
I'd like to capture both. That way we know,
right,
before it
right.
comes in. So,
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm excited that, we're collectively DPW,
yeah.
Sanitation,
Yeah.
Conservation Commission working together on this. So great news. Very excited to keep collecting this data and sharing it in a way, just like we share our solar data with the folks of New Canaan to say, look, we're looking at this. You should be interested.
Right.
Thank you, Linda. You're
welcome. Thank you.
I'm going to just cycle quickly down through this. The native tree planting program, Robin, I don't know if we have transferred the funds to you already yet. Have you received them?
That would be Tiger. Tiger would
Yeah,
get
I think the funds are going to come straight to us instead of to her.
Okay.
Katie dropped off a check yesterday, I believe, for everything on the Planet New Canaan side. And then I just need to talk to Linda, because for us, it's more of an account transfer, right? It's not necessarily cutting a check,
Perfect.
because it's town fund to town fund. So I just need to talk to Linda.
Oh.
And I spoke to Bob today, Bob Horan, the tree warden. And I'm going to meet him, I believe it's tomorrow afternoon, to go over and look at Waveney and look at the sites that he wants to do. And then at that point, it's really just him picking out the materials that he wants, and then we'll schedule our forces up and take care of it. So we're looking at the next couple of weeks, which is a nice planting window for us to start. We're figuring it's going to be 3-4 days worth of work minimum, because they're going to be a rather larger tree. So I think they're going to be a lot nicer.
Have you chosen the list of trees already?
Bob wanted some red maples and sugar maples, I think, to replace what's there, right? So what's been falling. So I left that to him.
Okay.
I think those were his choices. Excuse me.
Great project, great success in getting there and hitting your number. So it's another win for the Sustainable Connecticut effort.
Yeah, and big thank you to the Conservation Commission, for that amount to help us to get that $7,500 match. So thank you.
Yeah, it does give a little confidence to know you have something in the kitty when you start. That's for sure. Anything on food scraps recycling? I heard that the volumes continue to grow.
Robin, you want to talk or you want to go?
No, I'm actually, I compost at home, so I'm rarely looking at the food scraps. I have to start looking at it weekly, but yeah, you can give the volumes.
Sure. So this is our look, and this was our last take on May 4th, which is our highest amount to date, at 1,100 tons, or 1,100 pounds, or 0.55 tons. So you can see we're still steadily coming up. And when Donnie talked to Nick from Curbside Composting, he's going to be supplying at least an additional 2, if not 3 more bins. And then we'll be looking at, as we get closer into the June era or a June month, we're probably going to look at a twice weekly pickup, only because of rodents and smell, right? And that'll go for, at least through the summer. But it was nice to see that we, that we spiked here so far, and hopefully, next month we'll have another 4 weeks in. We can show you again that we're still on the rise.
That's also encouraging, and maybe that mid-year mailer will give it another added jolt when people consider
Sorry.
that.
Yeah, I approved that today. Well, I guess Robin approved it, and then Roseanne brought the tax insert to me, and I approved it, signed off on it for the payment. So I think we're all done, and she's ready to go. So the moment she's ready to put it all together, and it's heading out. So I think that's a really good thing too.
Yeah. Okay.
I spoke with someone on the Darien Recycling Commission, and I don't know if there's interest in New Canaan to do this, but we were talking about having a food scrap bowl between Darien and New Canaan.
Food scrap war?
Well, like the turkey bowl, but for, in a month or something, who can, do the most without any fouls, being any plastic or anything like that. We didn't know if it was a good way to publicize the program. So letting putting it out there, we've been talking, I don't know if it's worth it or not, or we thought it was just kind of get some competition in food scrap recycling.
Could do it around Thanksgiving, and then it would be kind of an interesting time, right?
Yeah.
Get high school involved.
Competition for me, it's all good.
Town gets a compost trophy or something, but
I don't know what that would look like, but
I don't know. I'm just thinking the same thing. What's the prize look like here?
Right.
Yeah.
A big vulture.
Sorry, just on that point, has there been much uptake on the rain barrels, Robin, that were offered? Are you aware?
Oh, so I'm sending people directly to Aquarian to order that, so I have no idea.
Got it. Do people on well water qualify for that, or is it only Aquarian customers?
No, anyone can buy them.
Okay.
So they, I think they're 70% off, and the pickup is like June 5th in Darien. I think
Okay.
you have to order by the 26th, May 26th.
Okay, that's a good reminder. Thank you. If I can continue on the agenda, solar power continues. We're coming into prime time, right, on solar energy. So I'm hoping it's turning the meters backwards, or at least sending electricity out back into the system. Are they reverse metered, these systems?
they're net metered.
Net
Yes.
metered. Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah, each of the systems is net meter. Some of them we won't be, just because, at the town hall, we won't see it, but at the pool, at present, since the pool's not open, we are definitely sending stuff back.
Got it.
You know, at present, and maybe at the nature center as well, because it's on a lesser building.
Mhm.
And then we did do an analysis on the playhouse and deemed that it might be possible to put solar on the playhouse as well. We have that slated to be replaced this year, so we're in the process of determining exactly how that would be, whether it be a town purchase or a PPA. But there is a definite push for additional solar, specifically at the schools, because they're going to put the high school roof, new one on this year, and I'm certain they're going to put solar on top of that as well.
And your experience, Tiger, is, and you're feeling like this is kind of living up to expectations, on track?
So far, it seems like it. Yeah, you know, the data is tough because we don't have consistent data for all 4 buildings. When we did when we put the CHP unit, for example, at the highway garage, we actually had to take the system down because we had people working on the roof. You don't want to be generating electricity while people are on the roof working with gas. So we were like, no. So we had to pull it down. So we don't have consistent data yet, but yes, I think it is.
Great. Okay. I look forward to, getting that 1 year or 2 year run on this and sharing that more publicly. I think it's a great thing that the great initiative from DPW in the town. And again, it's just another positive nature forward move for New Canaan. So great stuff.
Thanks.
Just skipping forward, swap shop. I think that's pushed into the fall thinking now, Robin. Sorry, I caught you.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's Tiger. Yeah,
Yep,
we
Tiger.
right now we have 14 volunteers signed up to man it. Tiger, there was talk of raising money for a temporary tent, but then the issue was the Bach amendment. So I don't know.
You can. We just have to go back and get that approved.
Right.
So we have to go back to for what's deemed a project, right? A town project. And that's possible. It means we visit the 3 boards and the council, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and Town Council, and get approval on a project. So that's possible. We did free up some space. I got rid of 1 container down there yesterday, as a matter of fact. And so we consolidated some of our stuff into that. We had 3 containers consolidated on 2. And then the new transfer station building is there, and we're working on bringing in the utilities to it. And at that point in time, we should see some additional work as well. And then we are looking at something with the animal control building, possibly a lease with a veterinarian, to see whether or not, and that might free up that entire area. Not quite certain yet, but we are trying different avenues to see where we could fit it best. I think where we had slated originally might be the location, but we're still looking at other areas.
Well,
Right, and you're still working on the scale house, so.
Yeah, we have another couple of weeks minimum before we're incomplete, and then we can get the existing structure out of the way, and then that'll free up some parking spaces and free up some room for us.
great.
Yeah.
Great news that, and again, it's got a little, the drum beat gets better and better every time we talk about it. So, and I know it's like playing Tetris, trying to figure out how you move your pieces around to slot something in. So, from a sustainable CT standpoint, I think you got a lot going, Robin. I think it's really been a good year. So congrats
Yeah.
on. All right, I'm going to just quickly do a verbal update on Bristow, which is, I guess, a focal point. We do have a capital plan spending of 112 submitted. I think it's sustainable at this point. I haven't heard from any party that they're looking at trying to cut it. So I'm hopeful that we'll get some initial planning done for that project. And that way we can, again, it's so great to have had accomplished so much in the past year when it comes to asking for the next round of money this year. So if we can get a jump on that $112,000 project, it'd be wonderful. And I don't know if there's any changes there, but I think we're working with Keith Simpson's KES to develop that, right?
Yeah, we received this proposal for the next set of work, and we just need to bring that forward for approval. And then the Board of Finance on Tuesday night approved the bonding for Bristow for the funding. It'll go to the council next month, and then pending their approval, it'll be available
Got it.
right after that, right after.
Yeah, it ain't over till it's over.
No,
this world
it's
just
3 stops. So you got
It's a lot of stops.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
The good news is, though, that the bid for the Raised Walkway has been approved and funded. And I don't know when Lanny will start, but that'll be another exciting improvement for the park.
Right, he's actively working on material procurement right now. Material procurement is pretty tough, so
Very tough.
we went with the diamond piers, and the diamond piers, he has one supplier that can supply 20, he needs 50, so he's working towards trying to get the additional heads, so to speak, for them. So he's working on it. I spoke to Marco, his assistant, yesterday specifically about it, and hopefully he'll be able to find some luck and free something up. But it's material procurement is tough for everybody right now, but he is actively working on it and trying to get move forward.
Yeah, that may actually delay the start, right, until you get the
Yes,
material.
yeah,
flowing.
unfortunately.
Got it. Which is another argument for making sure that we get a hot start on the 112,000, because that's mostly gravel and earth moving and stonework, which I think is more available.
Correct. So yeah, we'll try to get Keith's proposal in front of the selectmen soon to get Keith moving, and then try to get his work back to us as soon as possible.
Thank you.
I think it'll coincide. I'm hoping that's going to coincide that when the money is available, we actually have a project that's either out to bid or close to being out to bid. So, we have some time there.
That's great. It's really fun. I understand the Pollinator Pathway project is in being kind of shepherded by Bill Pollock at KES. And I think there's progress there, but I'm not aware of what the status is.
Yeah, I asked Bill for some help on just moving it along, since we've got a lot of irons in the fire. So we have a contractor. He's working on the material procurement, and then we have volunteers to do it. It's just a question of getting everyone together, and I would imagine that's going to coalesce within the next week or two.
Got it. All right.
Well,
That would be another, that would green it up, and the sooner the better, because we're going to move into the dog days of summer, and then you have a lot of watering issues in
Right.
Bristol, which is problematic. At this point, we have transferred that 35,000 and another 35,000. So the Friends of Bristol, by my accounting, have contributed $95,000 to date, and plan to contribute more as we move forward. So all good there. 26 birdhouses were installed, I think, almost 6 weeks ago, and the birdhouse trail has been installed. So the park, I don't know if you've noticed it, but people have kind of stopped me and said, "Oh, I visited the park, and it's, I saw this and I saw that." So it's building in its attendance. I'm more and more surprised that on any day, on any time, there are people on different trails regularly now. So it's definitely that main trail work has really stepped up visitation from the neighborhood. So great stuff there. A big thank you to the Highway Department Moses team for working with the Exchange Club and putting in those 8 beautiful dogwood trees along the roadway. That's going to be a real nice, every year that's just going to be pretty and attractive and make it look good. And I think we should recognize that not only has the fence line been redone, but there was work done to remove trees and overhanging trees behind it, so that the whole visual impact from Old Stamford Road is way up. People actually slow down and look in now and are trying to say, what's going on over there? So really good work.
Yeah, I saw it today. It looked beautiful. Looked really
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. And an Exchange Club crew was great. They're
They
just a
looked like
happy
they were
bunch
having a
of
lot of
guys.
fun. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, but for some reason, the Exchange Club has a higher proportion of comedians within the team than any other group I'm aware of, because there was a lot of jokes, a lot of laughing, a lot of fun going there. So thank you to the Exchange Club. Last two items are just the fernery installation is funded, and I think, again, it's KES is trying to work with Titan to work on getting the materials and then getting it installed. And then lastly, the Center Crossing Pavilion is, I think, funded. I would say we're really hoping that the Exchange Club comes through with half the funds, and there's some pretty positive indications. And the other half has already been funded by the Anderson family. So we are, as always, as you make progress, more people are interested in funding. So we have the Jenny M are supporting it because they love birding. Anderson family is supporting it because they love the outdoors. Happy to report that the Stuart Higley Foundation is now signed up for a 4-year support of the program. So we are getting some support, and it looks like we're going to be in a great point come 2024 if all this kind of matures in, that we'll have a great celebration. And at that, will open up the floor to any other questions or comments from my commissioners. Then would it be okay if I made a motion to close the meeting?
Make one comment.
Yes, please.
Shred day, Saturday, 8 to 12, transfer station,
Main entrance transfer station,
main entrance transfer station. Yeah.
shred date.
Shred day.
Got it.
Yeah. First of the year. Probably have another one, say August, September.
And this is a quick, almost personal question. Is there a battery, like pocket
Yes.
battery recycling system in at now, or is it the once a year hazardous?
No, the batteries we can take at any time.
I'm
There's,
talking about like
next to the
AA, AAA.
yeah, next to the electronics section, there's a bin for small batteries, and then auto batteries is up near the house.
Thank
up
you.
near the large station.
Thank you for sharing that. That's something that we should share more, because those are one of the ones that I always hate the idea of. It gets thrown into the garbage and then
Yeah.
incinerated.
It's actually on the map. It says the battery drop off.
Oh, is it going to be on the new map that's going out?
Yeah, on the insert it said, I mean, it doesn't indicate what type of batteries, but it says battery drop off and it shows the location.
Thank you. Okay, with that comment on board, I move to close the meeting at 7:51 p.m.
I second.